Good evening.
Good evening.
To the Honorable George Hartwell, our mayor of this fine city, elected officials, the community, and candidates. Welcome to Alpha Kappa Alpha's Theta Chi Omega Chapter's Political Forum. The candidates tonight will talk about their activities and their stances on issues related to the Grants Public Schools. To the community, we say welcome, and we invite your participation. Will the elected officials in the audience stand, please? And I stand as one of the elected officials as well. I am President Ruth A. Lumpkins of the Theta Chi Omega Chapter. And again, we say welcome to our political forum, and we invite all of your participation. We thank Sister Ingrid Scott Weekly for moderating, and a big thank you to the committee members, Miss Sarah, and I must still say Sarah. Sarah Hill, who is the chair of the Public Policy Committee, and where is she? In the back. Kelly Christopher, who is the chair of our Centennial Committee. This year, Alpha Kappa Alpha is celebrating 100 years in existence. We are. And we just look forward to being more involved in the community with activities such as this and other program ideas or platforms for our sorority. Again, welcome. And at this point, we'd like to ask Mayor Hartwell if he will come to the stage, please.
Well, thank you, President Lumpkins, Commissioner Lumpkins. Two commissioners in the family. How about that? I believe that the most important social obligation of any generation is to raise up the next generation, the children, to be the leaders for our future. I'm convinced that there's nothing that we can do that's any more important than teaching our children. And we need to teach them to be the civic leaders of tomorrow. They are the ones who will find the cure to cancer, who will be the scientists of the next generation. They will be the political leaders of the next generation, the business leaders of the next generation, and it is our obligation to raise them up well. And so if that's true, and I hope you agree with me that it is, then there is no more important elected official in elected office in our society than that of school board member. That includes mayor. No more important elected office than school board member, because it's the school board members who are setting the policy, determining the policy, and preparing our young people to provide the leadership for the next generation. So I congratulate each of these men and women here tonight for their commitment to service, those who are currently serving and those who seek to serve. For subjecting themselves to an electoral process. It ain't that much fun, is it, really, when you come down to it? To subjecting themselves to public scrutiny and holding up their ideas for us to judge, to evaluate, and then to make our own determinations in terms of who we wish to see lead our children. I want to, my job tonight really is not to preach a sermon at you, but to greet you and to thank Alpha Kappa Alpha for the commitment that you all make to this community and for hosting this event this evening. This is so important for us. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're going to be in for a good learning experience this evening, and you too will be in for a learning experience, I suspect, this evening. So thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words, President Wong.
Good evening, everybody. Once again, my name is Sarah Hill, and I'm just going to say a few words before I introduce our moderator for the evening. The first thing I would like to say is thank you to all of the candidates who have given their time this evening. It is a weekday evening, and there are other things that we all could be doing, and I just want to thank you all for coming, but also I want to say thank you to the candidates for finding the value in this forum and for dedicating your time, so thank you. Also, there were some evaluations being given out at the front door. If for whatever reason you failed to get one when you came through the door, please raise your hand and one of our greeters will get one to you. When the forum is complete, before we go out to have our cake and punch, I would ask that you please return those evaluations to the same table that we were doing the voter registration at. Thank you. Now, I would like to introduce to you all and present to others who have already met her, Miss Ingrid Scott Weekly. She is very active in the city of Grand Rapids, and everybody who knows her knows that she loves her grandchildren. And we are just so happy to have her with us this evening. She has done work on so many different levels for the community here in Grand Rapids, especially as the director of the Equal Opportunity Office for the City of Grand Rapids. So please give a warm welcome to Mrs. Ingrid Scott Weekly. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairwoman Hill. I appreciate that introduction. And I want to thank President Ruth Lumpkins and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Theta Chi Omega Chapter. It's a pleasure to be here and a privilege to be here, and I appreciate the fact that you asked me here to moderate this forum. I have a couple of housekeeping things that I need to share with you so that we'll sort of know, and with the candidates as well, so we'll sort of know how the evening is going to unfold. First of all, each candidate will be asked to provide an introductory statement and tell why they're interested in running for the Grand Rapids Public School Board. And they'll have approximately 2 minutes each for their introductory statements. After the introductions, the candidates will have the opportunity to respond to a set of 5 predetermined questions. And again, they'll be given 2 minutes to respond to each of these questions. Candidates, we do have a timekeeper, Ms. Janice Johnson, and when she holds up the 15-minute time, you'll know that it's that opportunity to summarize what you're going to say. And when she holds up the pink, hard to say pink and green. Okay. When she holds up the pink sheet, you will know that your time is up. And we ask you to really respect that because we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. I will also, in an effort to be fair, will ask a different candidate the first question, and then the next time the next candidate will get the first question, and so on, so that each candidate will have an opportunity to respond first. And then, audience, I want you to know that after the predetermined questions have been responded to, it's then your turn. You will have an opportunity. Any questions that you have, you can write them on an index card. We do have greeters. Greeters, can you raise your hand so that the audience will know where you are? You simply need to raise your hand, and the greeters will circulate and take your card. And when you've filled it out, then you can raise your hand, and they will take it back again. And we'll make sure that we get as many questions in as the time allows. Now, we need you to write legibly. So if you're like me and you don't write legibly, try to print, because otherwise we won't be able to read your questions. And we're also asking that you don't ask any personal questions, that your questions be related to Grand Rapids Public School issues, and that you be as positive as you can. We don't want to entertain any negative questions, and we want to be very supportive of all of these men and women who are committed to serving our children in the Grand Rapids school system. So, with that, first question, and I'm going to read the question, and then I'll ask Mr. Baker to respond to the question, and then each of the other candidates will also have their 2 minutes to respond. Mr. Baker, in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of youth violence in our community. What would you recommend that our schools do about the emergence of gangs in our community?
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you everybody here. I'm going to answer this question in two ways. One as a parent, and then also one as the way I would see a school board member should, and also myself as a sociologist. I think that when I think about if my children came home, first of all, I'd hope that they weren't the perpetrators of the problems. So anyway, I'm still hoping for that. But and they told me that there was a problem with someone that they considered gangs or were called gangs. You know, I would hope that I would go to those kids and find out who their parents were. But I'm quite sure that I would be talking to the principal of the school. And I think that because of my own concerns, then I would have to go to the principal, because the principal is the person who we have some expectation of having some authority that can help us figure out the problems. As a sociologist, I think that we, and a school board member, I personally feel that we need to be careful with the term gang. I think that if it's a useful term for school officials and law enforcement to use that term, then that's fantastic. But in terms of graduating our children to the stigma and the status of gang, and it's certainly in terms of our general conversation about problems is something that I don't personally see as useful, and then turns our children into people that we begin to fear. I believe that the most important thing to get the kids to respond to not acting as violent members of the community is when they are at school. They need to be engaged in school. They need to be there, and they need to understand. Obviously, hopefully for college or other aspirations, but they need to understand that this is going to give them the opportunity to be autonomous people, and they will be controlled by systems the rest of their lives. Specifically, though, schools that have strong leadership and strong principals, I believe, are schools that have the most, and I think the school board has to address that. Thank you. One of the things that I mentioned to you that I failed to do was that we would ask each of the candidates to provide an opening statement. And I want to thank you, Mr. Baker, for stepping right up to the plate and answering that question. I'm going to give you a break and go through with the opening statements for the other candidates. We'll give you a chance to catch your breath and come back to you. Okay. So starting with Ms. Lanier, would you please provide a 2-minute opening statement?
Sure. First, I would like to say thank you to the Sisters of AKA for inviting us out this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my perspective about why I have elected to be a part of the Grand Rapids Board of Education. First of all, I am a 13-year employee for the Blues Enterprise, working for Blue Cross and Blue Shield and Blue Care Network of Michigan, having worked in experience with progressive business experience in multiple departments, including human resources, where I have labor relations experience, negotiating experience, community affairs that gives me an opportunity to connect with community leaders and business leaders as well. I am a board member of the Student Advancement Foundation, which raises funds for the Grand Rapids Public Schools, and that is actually where I've gained my appreciation for GRPS. My daughter attends the Montessori High School, and she is a second-year student for GRPS. And she attended Christian schools throughout the rest of her educational tenure. And the reason that we decided to send her to the Montessori is because we found out about the positive things that were happening in the district. And I think that if there is awareness for the community about the positive things happening in the district, I think that we could win back students who have left the district, and I think we could also attract students into the district. And I believe that that's one of the major disconnects that we're facing for GRPS. I am a graduate of Creston High. Notice the blue and the gold. I'm a polar bear. And I'm also a graduate of Cornerstone University. So I've basically stayed in Grand Rapids most of my life, moving here at the young age of 9. And just to briefly say, why do I want to be a member? Really is just to help bring awareness to the community about the great things happening in the district. My time is up. That was fast.
Ms. Geetsman, would you provide your opening statement?
Sure. Hi, my name is Jane Geetson. I'm the mother of an 8 and a 10-year-old who attend the Grand Rapids Public Schools, also in the Montessori program. Our experience in Montessori and our experience in Grand Rapids Public Schools has been phenomenal. It's really driven my passion for the system. I'm going to talk about 3 things today: passion, commitment, and skills as I introduce myself. My passion, first of all, is really driven by the 4 little eyes that stare at me every day, and they are really driving me to make the system that they're in the best system possible. We have been involved with the system for 7 years now, and it's been a phenomenal experience. And what my goal is really to make that educational experience good for every child in every zip code in this city. My commitment, I've demonstrated that commitment from the classroom to the boardroom. I've been very involved in the classroom, volunteering. I have been involved in 2 district facility committees. I have spoken to the legislators in Lansing about the issues of funding. I have most recently raised about $40,000 for North Park's master planning process. We will be breaking ground on a $1 million renovation this summer for that. And in addition, I've worked with my own employer, Spectrum Health, in different partnerships that we have with the Grand Rapids Public Schools. And last but not least are my skills. I work for Spectrum Health. I have led a lot of change for Spectrum Health over the last 9 years, and I really think that's the job here, is to lead change. So thank you again. I'm Jane Geetson, passion, commitment, and skills.
Mr. Gordon Griffin.
My name is Gordon Griffin. My experience with the Grand Rapids Public Schools started back in 1967. Some of you we weren't even born then. I've been a teacher in the public school system and a principal, and I even served as a secretary when my wife had surgery for 6 weeks. I helped open the school, and oh my goodness, did I gain respect for that job. I've been in the school system for 28 years, so I do know the system in and out. I have nothing but respect for the Grand Rapids Public School system. The Constitution guaranteed a free public education to every child, and I believe that we're doing the best we can at doing that, but that doesn't mean we can't do it better. I have experience also, when I retired 9 years ago, I started my own landscaping business, so I have some experience knowing what that's like. And then I also served as the manager of a bookstore for a couple of years, so I understand the economic side of that. And seeing the public schools from the outside for the first time in my life. I have a lot of experience with children and parents. I mentioned the Montessori program. It was the parents that we got together several years ago, and we initiated the junior high and high school Montessori program. So I was instrumental in getting the parents together, and the parents are the ones that really drove that. We listened to the parents. That's what they wanted, and so we were able to have that actually come to be. I want to be on the board because I've given a lot of time to Grand Rapids Public Schools. I believe in the public schools, and I believe I want to be a part of making the schools better. I think there are always opposing viewpoints. Sometimes I have a viewpoint that's different from others, but I believe that we can learn to work together, to listen to each other, and to arrive at a conclusion that's best for the kids of Grand Rapids. That's what's most important to me.
Reverend Hoskins.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Pastor Kenny Hoskins. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the members of the AKA sorority for hosting and having us here on tonight, hosting this forum this evening. I'm excited to be here. So a lot of people may often hear me say that, but I'm excited every morning I get up and I'm able to breathe. So I'm thankful to be here, thankful to have an opportunity to address you on tonight. Let me also say that if you happen to hear me cough, please excuse me and bear with me, just at a tail end of a cold, so I don't want to cough, but it's forcing its way out. But again, we're just about over that, so please bear with me. I've been the board president here at the Grand Rapids Public Schools for the last 2 years. Been privileged to sit in that position. A couple of years prior to that, I was the vice president for 1 year and a member on the education committee the first year, and yet sat on that education committee. When I'm reelected, I won't say if, but when I'm reelected, some of the things that I really desire to do is make sure that we realize the potential of all students, not just some students, but all of the students. I also want to assure that our students have a quality education, even with the limited funding. There's not a whole lot of things we can do about the funding that comes from Lansing outside of advocating. And Lansing is Lansing. We need to make sure that we advocate, and we need to be consistent about that. But outside of that, that's not an excuse for our children not being able to receive a quality education. So we need to make sure, I want to be there on the Board of Education to assure that our children have that. Some of the ways we will do that, we'll talk about those later on. I also want to make sure that we're enhancing the level of parental and community involvement. That's really my platform, parental and community involvement, parts of my platform, to make sure that parents are engaged and the community is engaged. I've always been an advocate to say for the Grand Rapids Public Schools that we want to make sure that the community and our students, our parents are involved.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskins. And Mr. Derek Martin?
Yes. Thank you to AKA for hosting this event. It's a great opportunity to have our ideas heard. I'm a full-time student here at Grand Valley State University, a former employee, graduate of Grand Rapids Central High School, class of 2000. Part of my experience in the community serving on boards is as a member of the Housing Appeals Board for the City of Grand Rapids, as well as a short stint as chairperson of the city's Income Tax Review Board. I've been active in the public school system for many years since I was in school at Central High School. I ran for the board in 2000. As a member of the Free and Accepted Masons, Durick Lodge here in Grand Rapids, I have an opportunity to work various different things in the community. Why am I running? I'm running mainly to provide or help provide a productive and safe learning and working environment for the people that work in our schools and the students who attend our schools, and to break the status quo. I think I respect the folks who serve on the board, but I think that our board has become complacent, and I think they are near becoming obsolete. So my main reason for running is to provide those productive and safe learning and working environments, and not change just for the sake of change for the better.
Thank you. And Mr. Baker?
Okay, thank you again, and especially Alpha Kappa Alpha. I think that this is the kind of community partnership that we need, and there are others. My theme for my campaign is "We Are Grand Rapids Public Schools," and I say that with all of it, meaning that the Grand Rapids public needs to take ownership of its schools and create an expectation. And I think that that's true for certainly the parents and the teachers and administrators and board members, but also the community institutions, the churches, and my 80-year-old neighbors who it's been decades that they've seen anything specifically directed towards them as a beneficiary of the Grand Rapids Public Schools, and they are. And they should be a part of the process. The problems we've been asked to address here tonight, such as gang violence, poverty, language differences in the schools, these are all problems that arrive at the schools but are not the result of the schools. And so I think it's important that we address them, and we must address them as a community. My own background, I'm a father of 2 children in the Grand Rapids Public Schools, Maya, who's 8 in the 3rd grade, and Sammy, who's 6 in kindergarten, both at Grand Rapids Montessori Public School, so Montessori is well represented. Their experiences there and my experiences being brought into their classroom has been fascinating, and I've really appreciated it, and it's really made me feel part of the family and made me feel that Grand Rapids Public Schools is part of me. I am currently a professor of sociology at Ferris State University. I'm very much involved in getting the university connected to community-based organizations, both here in Grand Rapids and Michigan, but also in Chicago. I come from Chicago prior to being here in Michigan, and where I got my PhD at University of Illinois at Chicago. I did research on African American Latino communities, and how those institutions have changed to address the changes in the city. I'm an advocate of equality education. This is an opportunity to be much more directly involved in creating good schools. Thank you.
Okay. Well, now that you've heard something about each of the candidates, what's on their hearts and their minds with regard to why they're running for Grand Rapids School Board, we'll return to questions. And we're going to start with Ms. Lanier. Let me pose that question again for the benefit of the audience. In the past couple of years, there's been a lot of youth violence in our community. What would you recommend that our schools do about the emergence of gangs in our community?
Well, Ms. Moderator, I think that gangs give young people a sense of acceptance and approval. And I think that what we have to do for the Grand Rapids Board of Education and the school system, as well as the city of Grand Rapids, is provide positive venues for students to feel accepted and gain that approval, such as business clubs, focus on academic success, debate clubs, and other community activities. Grand Rapids actually is a program-rich community. The problem with Grand Rapids being a program-rich community is that the programs are designed for a group of people that may not necessarily are aware of the programs that exist. So a lot of them are underutilized. And I think that one of the things that we could do is build awareness about those programs. There are community centers throughout this city. We could also focus on sending students to youth groups. We have an after-school program that's Loop, and that program actually is designed to help with the latchkey kid, to keep the kid from going home alone and being able to get into something that they wouldn't otherwise get into because their parents aren't home. And those types of programs, it helps with their education, and there's tutoring and mentoring. But on the flip side of that, it provides a vehicle for that student to be protected and kept from involving themselves in something that isn't positive. We could also partner with the Grand Rapids Police Department to learn more about the gang activity that exists in the community so that they can explain to us where the gangs are. They know a lot about gang activity in this community. They know the members of the gangs. And if we know more ahead of time, we can be more proactive in minimizing the activity that enters into our school. And then finally, I would say a call to action to all parents, educating them about the gang activity, letting them know what they need to do in order to help their students to either end from being inside of a gang. And I know that would take a lot of programs and a lot of funding to be able to do that, but I think that we can pull some of our students out.
Thank you. And Ms. Geetson?
Hi. According to Ruby Payne, gangs are a type of support system. They provide all of the resources needed for survival. So these gangs are in existence for a purpose, and I think the only way to really unravel the gangs is to provide a better way to fill those needs. And this is not just an issue for the schools. This is a community issue. There are a lot of very good partnerships already occurring with the city, with the faith community, and with business owners. And I think in furtherance of those activities, that's really where we can benefit. We need to continue to strengthen the relationships with the neighborhood associations, having them embedded and understanding the school leadership, the kids that go to those schools, and really improve that leadership. I think the skill that I can bring to that is I have a track record for galvanizing cross-sections of people around solving issues. When we face tough issues, you have to bring the different stakeholders to the table so that they can all be involved and we can work to accomplish that unraveling, really understanding what's driving that behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
I don't think there's anything Grand Rapids Public Schools can do to solve the gang problem alone. This is a societal issue. It's an endemic issue. We've had gangs in our society since the Irish came to the United States 150 years ago. And the reason those gangs existed was because they felt their voices weren't being heard. in some way, we're experiencing the same thing with the kids here in Grand Rapids. I just heard on WXMI Monday from John Helmholtz that it's keeping the painters for Grand Rapids Public School busy almost every day, painting over the graffiti that happens in the restrooms and outside the buildings and so on and so forth. If this isn't a problem the schools can solve alone, we definitely need the cooperation of law enforcement, of community organizations, of churches, parents. And I think parents in the community often don't know what to do either. They're frightened. These kids are disenfranchised. They don't feel they're being heard. They are kids with real needs. They have feelings. They cry. And some of them are trapped to the point where they don't know what to do. Sometimes teachers can build a relationship with students and find out that this is going on, and with the parents and some other help from outside, they can resolve some of those issues. But teachers certainly cannot do this by themselves. And I don't think GRPS can possibly solve the problem by ourselves, given the circumstances that we have right now with it going on daily in our schools. But we have to realize that these kids are reaching out. And if they're reaching out for each other, then we can sometimes intervene to prevent some of the bad things that are happening with these kids. I mean, they're caught. And to leave the gang is a serious thing. So they really need to have some kind of resources and somebody to hang on to that can help them get out of the mess that they're in. So again, I think this is a community issue. We need to have the entire community involved.
Thank you. Reverend Hoskins.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley, and I appreciate that question, because as a pastor here locally, as a father of 4 graduates of GRPS, a father of 2 current GRPS students, myself and my siblings going through GRPS, I really feel that we really have to take this gang situation seriously. One of the things that I would recommend, and we're already moving in that direction, I see our Mayor Hartwell is here, Mayor George Hartwell. He and myself sat on a commission called the City School Liaison Commission, and he and I co-chair that commission. It consists of 3 school board members and 3 city commissioners, and we come together, and we, as well as staff from both entities, we come together, we talk about the issues within the community from the school points perspective and also from the city, and we're able to dialogue and come to some solutions or dialogue and come to some ideas that we feel would be solutions. We need to I would recommend to keep moving in that direction, but also I would recommend that we as the community and as GRPS staff and teachers and the Board of Education, we need to make sure that we teach our students to avoid the peer pressure. I've always advocated that students or children are looking for a sense of belonging. If we, the community, if we, the school system, does not give them that belonging, they're going to go and get it somewhere else. And so I would also advocate that we have some viable alternatives. Academics certainly must be at the forefront, but we need some viable alternatives such as the Loop program, as someone had mentioned earlier, sports activities. And research shows that between the hours of 2 and 6 p.m. is when our students, when our children have the most issues with crime situations. So I would advocate those. Larry Johnson and staff is doing a great job, but can they do more? Yes, with all of us working together.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
I think that what has been said is important with regard to collaborating community resources. Those are important things. But I think what the GRPS needs to do to start to deal with the issues of gangs and violence in the schools is acknowledge that it exists. This school district, this board, the superintendent has treated these issues as PR issues rather than safety issues. And I think until we acknowledge that these things are going on, that they exist, and face the reality of the situation, we can't begin to solve the problem.
Thank you. We're ready for question 2, and we'll start with Ms. Lanier. Here's the question. Recently, there was an article written referring to high schools as dropout factories. All 4 Grand Rapids Public Schools comprehensive high schools were named. What can be done to reduce the dropout rate, and how can we better prepare our graduates for the 21st century workforce?
First, I'd like to refute the study and the results of that study. The study actually erroneously calculated the dropout rate for the students of GRPS. My theme is supporting our future leaders, and we have leaders who sit on the board with us, student council members, and they were quite offended by the information that was portrayed in the media about the dropout factories. First of all, the state, federal, and the local districts use different measuring tools to determine dropouts. For instance, if you have a student who is in school for more than 4 years, let's say they had an illness and so they're still attending school, this study called them a dropout, although they're still in the school and because they were beyond the 4 years. Secondly, we currently have dropout recovery programs and other alternative schools to try and address the needs of the students who may have difficulty graduating on time and credit recoveries. We also have new schools that we're looking at building or renovating for the secondary or high school level, and I think that being able to produce a new building and a new environment that's conducive to learning will help the students to maybe take ownership and as they're continuing their education. What we found is that in the elementary level that we've either met our enrollment or we've exceeded our enrollment because of the new buildings that we've built. And so I think that we'll see some of the same positive results if we do the same thing at the high school level. Finally, we've just recently passed the change from our quarterly system to trimesters, which will go into effect for next year, and that too will also help with credit recovery because the students will have more opportunities to be able to regain some of those credits that may be lost. Thank you.
Ms. Geetson.
I would like to echo what Ms. Lanier said. The dropout rate calculation, I think, is something that we all need to agree on, because what I've learned in my career is that it's very hard to impact what you can't measure. So I do believe that we have to begin to measure and agree upon a measure that we're going to use. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, high school dropouts are twice as likely than graduates to slip into poverty. So this is an issue. Even if there's just 5% dropouts, it's still an issue we need to deal with. And I think we do that kind of in a three-pronged approach. One is the governor's proposal to raise the mandatory high school attendance age from 16 to 18, I think is a good idea. I think it'll keep kids in school longer. Two, I think the Centers for Innovation and other small high schools is a good opportunity to keep kids engaged. I really believe that the one benefit of being a large school system is that we can offer choice within the system, and we need to allow kids and guide kids through those choices. There's also a proposed counseling reform that I think will help us catch some of these kids before they fall too far out. And that is to get closer to the kids and really understand what's going on in their lives and direct them before it's too late. And also, I agree with Ms. Lanier on the trimester. It's going to give us more opportunity to get credit recovery because there are smaller windows of classes, therefore more opportunities to recover if you're not quite getting something.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
I agree also with the erroneous reporting of the dropout rate. The newest kind of report that I was able to get was that the dropout rate was around 9.6%. Well, if that's true, then 90% aren't dropping out. I get really tired of the negative kind of press that the public schools get here in Grand Rapids. I think we need to start recognizing the accomplishments that we have made. Indeed, there are students that drop out, and they drop out for various reasons. A book I just recently read said 44% of them drop out because they're bored. They're bored probably because the curriculum doesn't seem to relate to them, or somehow they don't feel like they belong. It's the same kind of thing we saw with the gangs. Again, lack of affirmation. I think our elementary teachers do a fantastic job of affirming the students. I think when they get into the upper grades, the teacher has 100 to 150 students to relate to, and it becomes far more difficult. Also, there's a lot of pressure on the part of teachers in junior high and high school to meet curriculum standards, and I understand the need for curriculum standards, but at the same time, those standards may not relate to a lot of students, and it's difficult to zero in on the fact that different students learn in different ways. I didn't ever do very good on standardized test instruments. In fact, when I took the graduate record exam when I began my doctoral candidacy, I had to get an algebra program text because I totally forgotten how to do it. I never did well on those tests. But a professor at Western said, you know, if you can see any relationship between the test and someone's success as a doctoral candidate, you know, I'll believe in them. I think we have to look at different kinds of evaluation, authentic assessment. Can the student really perform what it is we're requiring for them to do, not answer a question?
Thank you. Reverend Hoskins?
Thank you. Certainly we have some work to do in our high schools, but as others have said, that report was flawed. It was flawed in the fact that it only showed that the students were no longer enrolled in that particular district where they once were enrolled. But the report actually did not take into account that many of the students and their families had moved out of the district, whether it was out of the district in the city, out of the district in the state. However they moved, some of them moved out of the district. It did not take into account that they had done that. And some of them that moved out of the district, yes, they did drop out, but some of them enrolled in other districts, and they did not factor that in. But oftentimes we do look at the negative, but I really want to look at the positive. Yes, we do have some problems with the dropout rate. Yes, we do have a lot of work to do in the high schools. And quite frankly, that's why we want to move into this phase 2 facility portion of the facility plan, is so that not just the bricks and mortars. I believe that, personally, I believe that as we do have a more conducive environment to study in, it's going to help us increase in our academics, not solely because of the facility, but I look at a former Henry school where they were practicing in the band room and chips were, not the band room, the band was practicing in the boiler room and chips were flaking off. Those students they were still doing well as it relates to music, but some of their self-esteem was low. When they built a new facility now, the Martin Luther King Leadership Academy, those students have begun to excel even academically. But we want to move forward with new facilities in the high school, but certainly it'll take 3 to 4 years before the brick and mortar goes forward. But while that's happening, we have time to increase or improve our curriculums academically and be able to place those in simultaneously as the bricks and mortars go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
As a student at Central High School, as a freshman coming in 1996, we had 405 members of our class of 2000. On May 30th, 2000, we graduated 147. This is a huge issue in this district. And new buildings aren't going to bring students back. They might attract some new students, but new buildings simply won't do it. We used to have truancy officers in this district. We need to reinstitute truancy officers. We need to get out and knock on some doors and bring these kids to school like we used to. We need to push for more strict truancy ordinances in the city. I support the dropout age being 18 rather than 16. But this is also a social issue. When I worked for the Arbor Circle, one thing that we did is we worked with students at Central High School addressing social issues that were barriers to them coming to school. These are the types of things I think that will change the dropout rate and the truancy rates in the school system. I dropped a friend of mine that works at Ottawa Hills High School off the other morning. And when I went back to pick her up, there were students outside, and they were figuring out how they could sneak past a part of the building where there were bricks, past where the vice principal and the security officers were standing, to get past them without being seen. Of course, they were seen. What did the security officer do? What did the vice principal do? Not a thing. If we want change, we have to get serious about it.
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Thank you. Yes, the data was flawed. I read it, and the headlines were irresponsible. It gave the impression that the children in Grand Rapids aren't capable of learning, and I was very offended by that. And for the reasons that Reverend Hoskins, identified, people who obviously went on and graduated elsewhere but didn't graduate in Grand Rapids Public Schools. But if we're entering Central High School or other high schools and we're not graduating those kids, then the high schools aren't working for us. And I think that the current board recognizes the serious challenges of the high schools that are happening. About 2 years ago, I brought a group of Ferris education majors down from Big Rapids to visit a couple of schools here in the city, and we visited Central High School. And part of what I do when I bring students from Ferris down here is to talk about the viability of cities, and we visited the Montessori elementary school program and then the Central High School. And I cringed when I read my students' journals, that because they obviously saw that the resources available at Central were not the resources that they would expect to see. I mean, that's a reality. When I walk and knock on doors and talk to people about it, and they say, I don't want the board to be asking us for a property tax increase next year because, this just, it might work to my advantage, but, you can expect if I'm on the board to ask for the best resources that the students need, and they need new resources, and the teachers need resources. We need technology in the school, but I believe that we need we need more of a new physical infrastructure, and we must provide that. And I don't think that I think we would be irresponsible as board members to not at least ask the community to provide what is best. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go to question 3, I want to remind you, audience, that if you have questions, please raise your hand, and our greeters will make sure that you have an index card so that you can write your question down, and when we get to that portion of this evening's event, we can make sure that we ask your question. And I think we're ready for number 3, and Ms. Geetson, you have the honors. Here's the question. Poverty is a reality for many Grand Rapids Public School students. How can the schools better serve those students impacted by poverty?
Well, again, this is not just an issue for the schools. This is an issue for our community at large. I have to say, I'm very frustrated at the concentration of poverty in Grand Rapids Public Schools. The statistic that 81% of our kids qualify for free and reduced lunch in a community like Grand Rapids is appalling to me. I believe that the tide raises all boats. I'm a firm believer in that. And the departure of the middle class from the city schools is really hurting everybody. We need to attract people back with solid programs and good choices. Each child that we bring back into the system will provide this system with what I call the grease to address the issues of the underserved. We have no grease when 81% of our kids aren't able to eat dinner at night. That's crazy. Those of us with privilege also, I think, make a lot of assumptions about people in poverty, and I think we have to educate ourselves about the issues of poverty. It's really important that all of our teachers, administrators, board members, and community members understand what it is like to live in poverty. We have some great partnerships going on in this community. The Kent School Service Network is providing dental and health care in our high schools, and I believe that there are continued opportunities for partnerships. This community is very giving, and I have no doubt that when we have the will to solve a problem, we can do it.
Mr. Griffin.
As you well know, poverty is a multifaceted issue. It's not just the lack of money, it's often the lack of power, lack of transportation, all of that kind of thing, all of those things that most of us take for granted. Most of us prepare our students or our kids for school by reading to them and so on and so forth. Those kinds of things aren't part of the culture of poor. And it's going to be difficult to change that. What we have to do is make sure that we have an environment that those kids come into that's welcoming and affirming to them. I've seen students of poverty become doctors, lawyers, and teachers. So they can do it. They need that encouragement and affirmation that they can get from their teachers. But again, as she said, this is something that the community must do together, and I think we need to continue those community partnerships with, places like the Style Center and so on, where these kids can get a view that there is something for them in the future. There is something that they can do. It may not be college, it may be a service industry that they're going into, but these kids need to be afforded the opportunity that, I can make it. It doesn't depend upon my parents' income. And in this time, we have people who had relatively good jobs who are losing their homes. So it's not just the children of generational poverty. There are some new students who are facing these kinds of issues as well. The answer isn't money. The answer is relationships.
Thank you. Reverend Hoskins.
Thank you. We really have to better our educational system. I believe we're moving in that direction. I really do. Dr. Taylor is doing, to me, a great job at moving this district forward. He's grabbed the bull, so to speak, by the horn, where some were fearful of doing that. He's going forward and doing just that, and that's why we hired him. We do need, and I see Mr. Paul Helder is here, and we've had a few meetings. He and myself and Dr. Taylor had one, and I've spoken with him, and he's spoken to me outside of those meetings about inclusiveness of the teachers. I really do believe that, not just because he's here, but I really do believe that we need the teachers involved to help encourage our students. Again, I say education is the key, and others have already given the statistics, but even in Grand Rapids, I believe there's a 23% child poverty rate, and there's a large amount in the state of Michigan. And it's permeating throughout our society, but I also believe that we yet have an obligation to serve and give our students the highest quality education, regardless of the poverty issue. My campaign theme is a champion for quality education, so we need to make sure that we do that. Students who will eventually receive that quality education will bring back those resources into the community. We need to encourage them not to move away. But as they receive that quality education and they're able to get that compete globally in the market to go to Harvards and different schools and even Grand Valley. I mean, you don't have to go to Harvard, but to bring those resources, those jobs back into the community. And as they do that, that's going to help eradicate the poverty situation, and we'll be able to move forward. We must be innovative in our designs as it relates to academics. In other words, as we are creating and being innovative in our educational opportunities, we can help create jobs for our community members, which will in turn bring back some monetary resources into this community. I know that we do need the philanthropic community. Grand Rapids is number 2 in the nation. It's out there. Dr. Taylor is gaining those relationships. Doug Marie DeVos, the CEO groups are pointing to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskins, Reverend Hoskins.
Thank you.
Let's go on to Mr. Martin.
I think that working with community resources, like I said, working at the Arbor Circle the time that I did, we worked with families to address those barriers of poverty and do whatever we could by bringing together different community resources to solve them. And I agree. My grandmother always said, I have to agree with Reverend Hoskins that the sure way out of poverty is earning an education. And I truly believe that. But one thing that I disagree with, at least with regard to Reverend Hoskins, is he talks about creating jobs. This board contributed to the poverty in this community when it cut bus drivers' jobs. These were people who have kids in the schools. These are people who live and work in this community. So this board contributed to poverty in this community when they decided to privatize those jobs, and they are continuing to push for privatization, and that privatization is also a huge part of what's stirring this poverty in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Thank you. Yes, as has always been mentioned, 80% of our kids are economically disadvantaged. Only a third of the children in the Grand Rapids are poor. So GRPS is the choice of poor families, and middle-class families, by and large, are choosing other options. However, I don't see the solution to this as creating a marketing plan to get those families back into the system. I think that we need to produce a solid, quality educational product for the kids that are currently in the Grand Rapids Public Schools. And their success will if it brings other people back, that's great. I'm in the system, my kids are in the system, and we need to work for the kids that are in the system, and that's, I think, the best marketing plan is doing that. Another thing is that we, as a community, have to believe and expect kids can learn. And so when I hear people say it's not the buildings, it's the kids, then I stop the conversation. So we must believe the kids can learn, and we must believe it is our responsibility that they learn, and it's our responsibility to expect them to learn. A specific policy that I think that we know will benefit is early childhood education. We know that, and middle-class families in East Grand Rapids knows this, that their kids make sure that their kids have plenty of educational learning opportunities before they get to kindergarten. If our children get to kindergarten without those opportunities, then they're going to start far behind, and they won't catch up. Early childhood education is a national and a state. Governor Granholm is very supportive of this. This is a program that we know works, and I know lots of the research of why it works, and I know that other programs are doing it. But I hope to advance the cause as much as possible. My kids have enjoyed that opportunity here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Lanier.
Yes. The poverty that exists in GRPS is as diverse as this panel. The students come from all different backgrounds and colors and genders, and the district has been meeting some of the needs of our poorest students. Like Ms. Geetson mentioned, we do have 81% of our students who are receiving free and reduced lunch. So that to me is us meeting those needs. We also have transportation passes that we provide to the students so that they can get to and fro. We have a homeless program that helps students who may lose their home, their families may lose their home, and they help them to get into shelters. They provide clothing for these students. These are the programs that may not necessarily get the publicity, so everyone may not be aware of them. We're also feeding some of those families. We again have the Loop program, and it's an after-school program, and I believe that programs such as the Loop helps those who are in poverty to make sure that they're not in the street once they're done with school, and to help them to prevent them from getting into negative behaviors. We also have the in-school health clinics that provide dental and family services, and those are in multiple schools within the district. And then we have a summer food program that we allow multiple schools and actually not just schools, but some of the community organizations are providing food for the poorest families in this city. So there are things happening. I don't think that it's eradicated the poverty in this community yet, but I think that there are things that we are doing, and we can continue to move forward with those types of programs to be able to help the poorest of our school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Audience, we have just 2 more questions before we'll open up the floor to your questions, and then we'll wrap it up with closing statements by our school board members. Now for question 4, we're going to start with Mr. Griffin. A growing number of Grand Rapids public school students speak English as a second language. What should be done to reduce the language barrier between students and teachers?
This is an issue that concerns me a great deal. I'm volunteering in a classroom, a bilingual classroom, once a week at Harrison Middle School. Many of these kids come not only with a different language, but 3 or 4 different languages. We just had a student from Kenya who speaks 3 languages. He's learning English, and he's also learning Spanish because he's intermingling with the students there. If you had to learn a language right now, it might take you a couple of years. Many of these students come to us at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, even 9th grade, and are expected to achieve the same kind of standards as the rest of the students. Mm-hmm. It's just simply unreasonable to expect that. A recent statistics that I read in Educational Today magazine said that 12% of our students now are English learners, And it's expected by 2015 that that number could rise to 50%. That presents a big problem for those of us who are in urban districts especially, but not just urban districts in general. There are budget constraints that provide some money, but not nearly enough to provide the kind of support these kids are going to need if they're going to get through middle school and high school. You say, by the time they get to 9th grade, they should have learned English. Well, what if they came in 8th grade? It's difficult for them to catch up. They are not only faced with a different language, they're faced with a different culture, different kinds of money, different kinds of experiences. The kids in Kenya were left loose in their compounds for 4 years and didn't go to school. So just learning the process of school takes time. We need to provide more and more experiences for these kids. I think trimesters is one way we can do that, by having smaller classes for these kinds of students. But there's many other issues that I just don't have time to talk about, but that's one of my favorite issues, is that we really need to do something about that.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Reverend Hoskins.
Thank you. And we are moving to trimesters. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. We're moving in that direction. But this is a problem that is difficult in Grand Rapids Public Schools. Our student population represents 70 countries with approximately 49 different languages that are spoken. So we have some programs already in place that are addressing this issue. However, we must continue to be, as I keep stating, we have to be innovative, think outside of the box, and our students, so that they will receive the maximum benefits. But we also have to make sure that we have individuals that are adequately trained to teach in this area. And we do have some, but we need more. We need more. And it's difficult to receive those individuals out of college because they're going to other places. But again, as we improve as a district, we can attract those type of teachers. We could also put more money towards training those teachers here that we already have in that direction. So again, there's many individuals that have to be trained in this area as it relates to students. But one of the difficult things is we only have approximately 1 year to get them speaking English in order to take the MEP test, whether they're adequately prepared or not. That's why oftentimes, not the only reason that our MEP tests go down. It's no fault of the students, because a lot of them come to our country, come to this country, and they haven't had any schooling at all, a lot of them. So it's a difficult situation, not one that's insurmountable. What we really have to do is move forward and really train individuals to be adequately prepared to teach. Thank you.
Mr. Martin.
I also think that we need to provide the necessary resources to ESL students and expand those programs and continue to do what the district is doing. But on the flip side of that, I also think that the district should start exposing English-speaking students to different languages earlier. You can't expect me to speak English or speak Spanish fluently as a GRPS student when the first Spanish class that I might have ever taken was in the 11th grade. We need to also expose our students to other languages earlier than we do.
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Thanks. As a country and schools, we're going to be facing this. This is the 21st century reality. English language learners will be in our classroom. School board officials, people who work for public schools, are not immigration officials, and so we don't really need to be debating. We need to teach the kids that show up to our schools, and that is our responsibility. I don't think that we could have imagined 15 years ago that we would certainly have a large population of kids. But as Reverend Hoskins says, 49 languages is remarkable, 70 countries. We wouldn't have imagined having kids from Bosnia or Somalia or Sudan. Those are pretty remarkable, and we have to work hard to be prepared for that. I think bilingual education works, and it works to provide a context for children that are learning English as well as the core subjects. I think that it's also about understanding not just language learning, but also diverse cultural perspectives. We have to work, I think, as teachers. I'm a teacher. I work with future teachers. We have to work to understand the cultural diversity. I know there was a controversy a year or so ago about comments about understanding cultural people in the classroom. It's changing. We have to work at it. I hear stories of parent-teacher conferences where the student is doing the translating, and I think that would go well for the 16-year-old. But I don't think it goes well for the school or for the community. So we have to work together to be. I'm a very strong backer of the teachers on this, but I think that this is an issue that we have to work hard on, and we have to appreciate it, and this is a huge asset. This is why my kids are in the Grand Rapids Public Schools. I didn't move to Big Rapids, Michigan. I commute back and forth because I want the diversity. I want my kids exposed to those 49 languages. That's all I got.
Thank you. Ms. Lanier?
Yes, as Reverend Hoskins mentioned, over 49 different languages in GRPS, and that makes up 20% of our students. And that's obviously a huge barrier in the district. And we are working, I'm on the legislative committee for the Grand Rapids Board of Education, and we are currently fighting and making our voice heard at the federal level to be able to get some support for our ESL students and the standardized tests. So that's one way that we're looking to address that. And of course, we know that it may take a while for anything to be changed there, but that's certainly something that we're looking at as they're looking at changing No Child Left Behind. We also know that it's a barrier not only for the students who may be frustrated with trying to communicate, but it's also a barrier for parents when they're trying to communicate, as you mentioned, during conferences, and then especially for faculty who's trying to educate a student that may not necessarily understand everything that they're being taught. What we've done is we've sacrificed from our operating expenses over $1 million beyond the line item for our English language learners. And that was a way of saying this is important to us, and we'll pull from operating to make sure that we can provide some of the tools that are necessary. We also have schools that do focus on English being the second language, and as well as we have schools that they're dealing with those languages, that some of those 49 languages on a day-to-day basis with the students as well as the teachers who are fluent in those languages. I think another thing that would be good is if we had more preschool enrollment, because I think it'll help break the barrier that we often hear that students learn second languages quicker and faster the younger that they are, and I think that if we could increase preschool enrollment, that would help. Thank you.
Ms. Geetson.
I think this particular issue, as all panelists have said, is a significant issue. I think this is an issue that calls for creativity. We in the school system are not the only people facing this issue. I work in a healthcare organization that also faces this issue. We're serving the same public. So maybe we could join forces and work together to deal with the issues of translation and things of that nature, because in 49 languages, let's face it, there's not 49 teachers in every classroom, and likely not too many people that can do 49 languages. So this is an opportunity for creativity from my perspective. I think the other thing, as Dr. Baker mentioned, is the whole, not just the languages that come with that, but really understanding the cultures. And much like learning about poverty, I think it's incumbent on our administrators and teachers and board members to become more culturally competent. Because again, I think we make assumptions about people from different cultures that we should educate ourselves on. So it's not just language, but also the associated culture. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our final predetermined question, and we're going to start with Reverend Hoskins. Grand Rapids Public Schools has proposed eliminating 2 comprehensive high schools and using their facilities as a thematic school. What are the pros and cons of this arrangement, and what can be done to minimize potential problems?
First, let me say this. I am a member of the current Board of Education, and as we vote, I don't always agree with everything, but we move forward, not always happily. And so if we check our voting record, my voting record has been, I voted against privatizing. I want to get that in, both substitutes and transportation. Check your voting record. Phase 1 focused on elementary, in answer to the question, elementary and middle school projects. And this helped enhance our elementary and our middle schools. Now, phase 2 of the building improvement plan will focus on, number 1, creating state-of-the-art 21st century high schools, academic facilities to move forward in that direction. They will also create flexibility for supporting small learning communities and schools within the schools, thematic instructions, and also include the latest technology. Number 2, as I forestated earlier, whether the bond passes or not as we move forward, there will be and there must be improvement in the high school level at the academic performance, first and foremost. If the bond does go forward, if it does pass, then the appropriate learning environments will be developed to support the improved educational programs. Thirdly, this will give flexibility to the high schools of the future as they respond to the changes in programs, program delivery, also the teaching instruction and future advancements in technology. Those are some of the pros. As I look at some of the cons, again, it may be the finances, but I want to come back to that. It may be lack of partnerships, and I think we're moving in a positive direction in that area. But however, we look at that. The community has to look at how we've been stewards over this 2004 bond. Have we done a good job with that? And lastly, 1 Corinthians, I always have to put this in because as a born-again believer, 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, moreover, brother, it's required of us. We really don't have an option. It's required of us to be good stewards over what God has entrusted us with, and also who God has entrusted us with. I believe personally He's entrusted us with our children's education. As we move forward, the question to me is, are our children worth it? I say yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
You know, I don't absolutely oppose the comprehensive high school plan. As a graduate of Central High School, it would be horrible to see Central High School leave in its current form, but I'm not totally against this plan. There are some concerns. There are some concerns that I have in regard to passing a bond millage. To repair the high schools, this is a board who paid a consulting firm thousands of dollars to tell them that they needed to have a bond proposal. If you're that disengaged with the community as a board member that you can't determine from talking with people in the community and students and parents that you need to have a bond proposal, then you don't need to be on the board. So I don't totally disagree with the comprehensive high school plan, but I do have some reservations in regard to the cost, in regard to the planning, and the lack of involvement in the planning. But I would like to see new high schools in Grand Rapids.
Thank you. Mr. Baker.
Thank you. I think, again, we need to find what works and invest in it. I think that in terms of the research I've seen, I visited some large Central City public schools that have been broken into the small schools concepts, and I think it's very easy to find them attractive, and I think that research tends to show that students are more connected to the schools, they feel less anonymous, the learning environment is better. There's certainly a familiarity, a community of learners that tends to happen, and it also opens up great options for families and children as they're doing it. And to be honest, I like the ideas that have been proposed for the comprehensive high schools here. I think that we need to make sure that we have lots of community input, and that the teachers are in terms of what the impacts are going to be on the teachers and how they're going to contribute to it. I'm biased. I see teachers as offering a lot of resources, and they need to do that. I think it's going to take a lot of work to get all of us connected to it, but I see it as a positive. So I see that as this is a great opportunity. Two cons I want to address. One is that I think that we need to make sure that we don't create a situation where we have brain drain, where all of the most ambitious kids end up in the theme schools. And the comprehensive high schools are seen as a lesser quality experience. I think we have to make sure, and I think that creating new facilities for the comprehensive high schools as well helps to solve some of those issues. But that is a concern that happens in communities that have it. So the most ambitious kids end up in the better schools, and I think that for people familiar with some of the concerns with magnet schools, that's been an issue. I have heard criticisms about this requirement that we're going to force people to cross gang turf and all. I think that obviously those are issues that need to be addressed. We can't let gangs dictate school boundaries, so that's not an issue. We do have to have as much community understanding and input as possible. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Lanier.
If you want different results, we must do things differently. Grand Rapids cannot afford to continue in this status quo. So I definitely agree that going to 2 comprehensive schools and thematic schools is the way to go. I think that it will prepare our students for the global economy. I think that it will also allow students to be able to work in an environment that's conducive to their learning style and their gift set. Some of the other pros I have to say is that I think it would increase the engagement in the educational process, which I think in turn will lower the dropout rate. I think that it will increase enrollment to the district. We just saw with the University Prep Academy that we receive applications from students who are outside of GRPS. So to me, that also says that we will welcome new students to our district, which is one of the things we're trying to do. I think that it would increase achievement. The models that we have put in place so far have been proven models that they are successful in other areas. I think it will increase community engagement, and we need the community to be vested into the future leaders of Grand Rapids. I think we'll also see higher graduation rates, again, because if a student is in an environment that they're no longer bored in and they're able to achieve, then we will probably see our graduation rates increase. And then I think it'll also help with the career paths. A lot of professionals go to college immediately after high school and get a degree and are no longer working in the same degree environment that they went to school for. And I think this will help students to be able to learn where their gift set is. A few cons, I think that the biggest con is changing the mindset of our community and those who may be resistant of this, the sporting issue, and then the allegiance that students may have, and then finally timing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Geetson.
Again, our 4 comprehensive high schools have not met AYP in the last 6 years. This is a case of desperate times call for desperate measures. We need to change. This is essential. I think the pros of the small school concept are that we'll offer more choices for our students. That's the benefit of being a large district. Let's leverage those benefits. Smaller environments for learning. Opportunity to build some unique programs with our public-private partnerships. Attracting students to programs designed around areas of interest to, again, reduce the dropout rate. And attracting teachers that want to work in a smaller environment as well. Athletic competitiveness, that's not top on my list, but I know that is of concern of lots of people. The cons, again, merging sports teams can be a little tricky. There'll be transportation challenges because we may be moving a child from one end of the city to another. We'll need to address the facility issues. And there's something about tradition and heritage and identity. I am a polar bear too. And that's something that runs very deep. But I believe this is something we must do. We really don't have a choice at this point. And you know what? I would rather do it ourselves than have somebody do it to us, because that's what's going to happen if we keep going on the trajectory that we're going on, and I'd rather be in control of that decision.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
I think the comprehensive high school and the thematic schools is a good idea, long in coming. I think Grand Rapids Public Schools has to provide real alternatives for all of the parents who live within the Grand Rapids public school district areas, and I think we can attract students back to our high schools if we offer other alternatives for them. We have a very talented teaching staff, and I'm most frustrated that teachers were not intimately involved in the planning of this process. I went to the community meeting at Alger and very frustrated at the presentation that was given. It was unclear. I was sitting at a table with 3 other groups of parents who were just about as confused as I was. I asked for the final report, and I received a copy of it, and I looked at the results, and they were inconclusive. I'm not sure that we've even listened to the community in this area. I think we need to take our time. We need to look 10 years in the future. Have you ever heard of magnet schools? That was a wonderful opportunity that we had to provide all kinds of different alternatives for students in the elementary. Those are gone. We need to think before we act and realize what the cost is going to be before we invest a whole lot of money and a whole lot of effort in something that teachers who've been here a long time realize we may be revisiting again in 5 years. I think we need to be a little more forward-looking. We've got a lot of talented teachers. We've got a lot of talented people in the district, and their minds have not been tapped in the development of this process, and I think that's a crime. Whatever changes are made, curricular or otherwise, in our school district need to have the input from the teachers at the very beginning of the process, and that hasn't happened, and I think that makes it very difficult for them to buy into the program later on. So I think we've got to do a lot more forward thinking than we have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, candidates. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving into questions that you have provided. There are quite a few, and we need to stay on schedule. So I will get through as many of these as I can, and as I said earlier, then we'll have an opportunity for the candidates to provide a closing statement. So we're going to be very conscious of the time as I try to get as many of your questions answered as possible. And I'm going to start this particular question with Mr. Martin because he hasn't had an opportunity to respond first, and then we'll work through the rest of the candidates as we've done before. But after that, I will simply read a question, candidates, and then whoever wants to respond can respond. Okay? But Mr. Martin, we'll start with you with the first audience question. What suggestions or what process would you use to get more parents involved in our school system?
You know that's a difficult issue to address. But I think what it has come to is we got to get out and knock on doors. We got to get out and talk to people and convince them of how important it is for their children to be in school and for them to be participating in activities at the school as well. So my answer to it is get out and beat the streets. Hit the sidewalks, knock on doors, be more engaged.
Okay. Mr. Baker.
I struggle with this because I, attend lots of PTA meetings and, see attendance and I criticize some of our PTA leadership. I hope they don't see this, but in terms of how they, how we're doing it. When I go to other events, like I've helped coach the 6 and 7-year-old track team, which is fun. Parents are there and engaged, and I think that there's to some extent, I don't know what's happening, intimidation, business, all this other stuff, but yeah, we need to figure out a way to see that the kids are connected. But it's not like they're not participating. They're just not participating in some of the things that, that we have organized for them to participate in. And so we need to find ways to attract, in those situations. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Lanier?
I think we need to diversify our communication strategy. We need to go to the parents to find out how do they prefer to be communicated with. Email may work for someone, the telephone, going door to door, having conferences during the day. It's just a multiple of ways of communicating with someone, but you have to engage them to find out what works best for them if you want them engaged in the educational process. I'm not even opposed to having some form of incentive programs to bring parents to the schools to talk about their kids' success. I think that especially at the high school level, you do see parents drop off from attending conferences and things of that nature, and I think that's more of a critical time to hear what's happening in your child's school.
Thank you. Ms. Geetson?
I think this is really about meeting people where they are and really understanding what the pressures are of the parents out there. I'll just say, I'm not always happy with the administration of my school when I get notified the day before that some big event is happening. People have lives, people have jobs, they don't always work during the day, sometimes they work in the evenings, they have other challenges. The other thing that I think you can do to get people involved is give them different ways to get involved. Somebody might not want to come to a PTA meeting, but they might be willing to, plant trees on the playground over the weekend. People are all different. One of the ways we engage parents is to have them cook for the teachers during conferences. A lot of people that do nothing else throughout the year will do that. So there's multiple ways to engage, and again, meet people where they are.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin.
What worked when I was a principal at Stigsby was food. The minute you provide potluck supper, you have a lot of parents involved, and we did make a lot of contacts with parents that way. When I taught at Stigsby, and that was quite a long time ago, during Black History Month, we made 400 dashikis, and we had a soul food dinner for those 400 kids, and we had all kinds of parent involvement. Now you can't do that kind of thing because of health issues and so on. But we also had a very successful parent involvement program when I was principal at Congress Montessori, and I think part of it was because the parents bought into the program, but part of it was we made opportunities for parents to be involved in the classroom during school, and as well as after-school kinds of events. We had over 40 parents a month that were in the school, actively reading with kids or just sitting with them. They were actively involved in developing discipline plans when we needed to improve a child's discipline. So there are different ways of doing it, I agree, but I do think you have to make an effort to go out into the community as well. We can't just expect to send home a note and expect them to respond.
Thank you. And Reverend Hoskins.
Thank you. Accessibility is a must. I think that the district has to be accessible, but we as board members certainly have to be accessible. I really take pride in being accessible. I live in the community. I thank God for my wife, lovely wife, Sharonda. She's here tonight. She allows me the time. I'm hardly ever at home, and she allows me to do that. I'm a local pastor, so the school board is not the only platform that I have to be in the community. I'm always in the community. I'm not bragging. I put my boast in the Lord. I'm consistently in the community. I'm committed to this city. I'm committed to the community. So there has to be that accessibility. I think it was Mrs. Geetson said that we have to meet people at their needs. We do. We have to come to the community persons, to the parents, and encourage them. At my church, which is only one block west of the Board of Education, we have a food pantry, and we also have a food truck, and we have the food truck right out on the parking lot on the corner of Franklin and Fuller. Every time those individuals come, and we have hundreds of people come through there, I not only talk to them about the church, but I also talk to them about the school system. And one other thing I want to say is, every member on the last 4 years that I've been on the board, every member of this community, with no exception, that has called me, I've immediately gotten back with those individuals. There's not one person that can say that I have not gotten back with them. I'm the only board member, again, that's on, who has their email on the website. So I want to be accessible, and I am very accessible. Another commitment that I have is, even though we don't make a whole lot of money, I'm not in it for that. It's about serving, because ministry means to serve. This is an extension of my ministry. One of the things I'm really proud of is in the 4 years, all of the meetings that we have, I've missed 2 meetings. So you have to be accessible.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to just read questions, and any of the candidates who would want to respond to the question can do so. And we're going to get through as many of your questions as we can. The first is, the Board of Ed is considering the elimination of professional counselors in the high schools, leaving only one in each school. How will the elimination of counselors help students?
There's no way that'll help students. That just places more of the burden on the teachers. And teachers are willing to step up. I know they are willing to step up. But it's the case, I've been involved in the school system for 40 years. And we kept saying we're cutting to the bone, we're cutting to the bone. Now we're into the tissue and the organs. A school does not work without an efficient counselor. Just simply doesn't work. That's as essential as a teacher or a principal. I know teachers can step up, and I know teachers could probably take on a little more responsibility. Heaven knows they keep taking on more and more every day. But I just don't really think that the schools are going to work well without a counseling position.
I'm not certain that I understand the proposal the same way that it's written there. Now, that just could be my ignorance, but it's my understanding that there will be a team of people performing counseling services for the students. That's the interpretation, and when we get more information as we're getting closer to making a decision, I'm sure I'll learn more about that. And I would have to say that I think that no school can be run, especially at the secondary level, with one counselor. I think that they are key to the success of our future leaders because they're helping those students and guiding those students through their high school success. And so I don't know, I think I just need more information about that because the limited information I have isn't what I'm hearing today. But I wouldn't support that if it was just one counselor.
But that's not true. I mean, oftentimes someone will grab something and put it on the Board of Education. That's not true. This is a proposal coming from the administration, and it's not to eliminate the counselors and have only one in the building. There will be a trained lead counselor, but also not students, but it's called trained student advocates. These are adults that are trained also in counseling. There will be 4 of those and 1 lead counselor. So, no, that's the way you put it out there. That's not correct.
Okay. Here's a follow-up.
I wanted to answer that question. You know, when I was at Central High School, we had 3 counselors for 1,000 students. The counselors, I think what we should first do is determine what the counselors' jobs are. Because when I was in high school, Miss Lee, her main responsibility was grades and not talking with students. So I think we need to make a distinction between what the job of a counselor and a social worker is in our schools first. But I would definitely not support having one counselor or trainees in a school.
Well, I just have to say that my high school counselor just so happens to be here tonight, and I am here because of the work that Ms. Anderson instilled in me as well as other students at Creston High. And so their work is to engage in the student success and to talk with the students to help them to see what their future holds and to see what choices they have available to them in colleges and training and technical school. And actually, she was a shoulder. She was probably a mother and a whole lot of other things to a lot of us in our schools. And that's what counselors are for. They're that role, the nurturing role to help the students when they're not in the classroom in an environment where they're supposed to just listen and obtain all this information. They're there so that the student can share, so that someone can interpret the needs that they have and help them to be successful. Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Well, I'm hearing some frustration from counselors and teachers. Respond to this question. How do you keep a positive morale with teachers and counselors when their jobs are continuously being threatened and challenged? Mr. Martin.
You can. And going back to counselors, I don't know what counselors did when Ms. Lanier graduated, but I think I'm the youngest person sitting on this panel. And 8 years ago, counselors spent most of their time doing paperwork. So there needs to be a clear distinction between what the duties of counselors and social workers are in the schools, and they need more support.
I think the answer is that we need to begin to have true dialogue with all the stakeholders involved in these decisions. And I think that's the frustration that I hear when I talk to teachers, is that they're not being heard. And I think that's really what's critical here, is that we need to begin to listen to each other. Administration and teachers, we're in this together. We need to act and behave that way.
I also, I don't want to, throw stones here, but I think that there does appear to be a line drawn, and the people I've talked to are teachers, and I talked earlier about my kids' experience in schools. I mean, my kids' teachers, have been fantastic and not demanding and very much giving, and they're frustrated with the amount of input they have and the way they're being the disrespect that they see, and I think that they're our partners, and they're with our kids, and so I think that I would say that, especially in relationship to the contract issue that is a dispute, they need to have a voice, and I understand there's lean times, and I don't want to talk about a budget that I haven't seen, but the teachers need to be there, and they need to be supported, and I think that asking them to do more at one level is somewhat insulting because it appears that the problems that exist are problems that are of their productivity, and I don't believe that's true. And I just don't like the animosity that's resulted there. I'm a teacher too, so we have these disagreements with administration often, but I feel it's particularly a concern here.
Thank you. Reverend Hoskins.
Again, I think some have said it. There needs to be that open communication. I like to think of myself as a consensus builder. One of the things that I've chosen to do as board president for the last 2 years is call each board member outside of once a month, outside of board issues, how are you doing and what's going on in your life, and it's genuine, and that has kind of brought us together. It's brought us together a lot. Some people say now we're a rubber stamp board. Before they were saying it was 5 to 4. I don't look at it as a rubber stamp board. I look at it as now we're communicating a lot better, and if the issue makes sense, then we move forward. But in answer to that question, I said that to say this. As a consensus builder, not only on the board, I'd like to think that I do that in the community. I personally stepped in and had a meeting, as I forestated, with Mr. Helder and Dr. Taylor, just the three of us. And I believe there was some progress made in that meeting. There is a little more open dialogue now. There shouldn't be any animosity. I don't have any animosity. There may be others that do, not necessarily on the board. There may be some in the administration, maybe some in the union. But my purpose for having that meeting, my purpose for sitting on the board is to bring consensus and to make sure that we come to a win-win situation. And I think that communication is somewhat open now, and we need to continue to move forward. My effort is going to continue to be that way.
I would have to disagree because I'm going around to the schools and I'm talking to students and I'm talking to teachers, and I'm not hearing the same story. This is a board who has given the superintendent their 100% confidence, even after one of the largest teachers unions in the state voted no confidence. So I don't see that.
I'm
I'm
fine.
just wondering what he didn't see.
I don't see the honest and open dialogue. Is
You're
what
not
I
there all
don't
the
see.
time. You're not there all the
Okay, we're running out of time. I'm going to ask one more question for you to respond to. I'm sorry, audience, we're just running out of time, and then we're going to have a closing statement by each candidate. And that question is, name one new thing that the Grand Rapids Public Schools and city government can do that will benefit the academic achievement of our children.
I'll start by saying something I said. This is something that is immediate. We know it will work. Enhance, improve, invest more in early childhood education as soon as possible. We know it works. We should just do it as much as possible.
Anything else? One new thing GRPS or city government can do?
I think what city officials and school officials should do, along with other organizations in the area, pool their resources together and more aggressively petition the state legislature and Senate for the changes that we need to make education work. This is a political issue too, and unless Lansing is Lansing, that doesn't cut it for me. We put you there, we expect results, and I think if there's some more aggressive lobbying on the part of different factions of the community, that would help.
Thank you.
I think I had mentioned that Grand Rapids was program rich, and I think that if we could, because there are so many people who want to help Grand Rapids Public Schools, and my employer is one of them, and we've had partnerships with multiple schools, and we'll give a few thousand here and a few thousand there. I think that if there was some way of getting all of those groups together to collaborate on one big issue that we could eradicate, I think that would probably be the thing, and maybe that group could decide on what issue it would be that we could maybe tackle resources like money and time and energy to eradicating.
Again, from the City School Liaison Committee, which consists of 3 board members, 3 commissioners, myself and Mayor Hartwell co-chair that, as well as staff from both entities. We're moving in those directions, but I think that if we can get the partnership from the philanthropic community, where we can, as Mrs. Lanier said, come forward with one big idea, maybe some type of arena, some type of academic schooling facility that we can both operate together. I don't know the laws of that, but certainly there should be, or even if it's some type of after-school facility, but partner together to help move forward an initiative in that direction, but from the philanthropic area.
I think about 40 miles south of here, somebody came up with a really big idea that's working. And we have the resources in the community to make that work here. It's an economic development engine for the community. It brings the middle class back into the city, and that's the Kalamazoo Promise. And the only thing that is keeping this community from having the Grand Rapids Promise is wealth.
Any other comments?
I agree that the city and the schools are in the same boat. We're at the mercy of our state, which isn't in great shape financially, and we absolutely have to collaborate with the city. I don't know why we can't become partners in developing neighborhood resource centers and that kind of thing. I think one of the biggest problems our kids have is not enough activities at junior high and high school level, and kids that are idle are going to be in trouble and create problems for themselves. So I think we have to be partners in this together.
Any other comments? Okay, we're going to move now into our closing statements. Again, they'll be timed, 2 minutes tops. And we're going to start at the other end of the table. We're going to start with Mr. Martin and then come this way. Mr. Martin, your closing statement, please.
Again, like I said before, my main reasons for running for a seat on the board is to do what I can to help provide productive and safe working and learning environments for our students and staff. Like many citizens in Grand Rapids, I'm tired of the status quo. Some members of the board would say, well, we're not a rubber stamp. Well, from where I'm sitting, all I see is a rubber stamp. I see a board who has emphatically supported the superintendent even when thousands of its teachers has voted no confidence. I see a board who tried to punish board member Harry Campbell for doing his job as a trustee going into the school buildings, which if I'm elected, I will go into every school building in this district within the first year. So I think that we need to decide as a community whether the elected officials that we put in place are doing the job that we elect them to do. If you think so, vote for them. If you're tired of the status quo, vote for me.
Reverend Hoskins.
Again, I'd like to thank the members of the AKA sorority for hosting this forum on tonight. Thank you for inviting me. Also would like to thank the audience for just being here and participating and being attentive. I think it's important to have the facts. That's really something that I really feel before I speak out on anything. And I also would encourage others to have facts prior to speaking out on any type of issue, whether it's dealing with the school, whether it's social situations in our community, whether it's even your personal life at home. But I think that's very important to have those before we can make educated decisions. And I like to pride myself in doing that as we get our packets through the Board of Education. I thoroughly go through those. When re-elected on May 6th, I promise to work diligently, towards solutions that will help enable our citizens, our city, our district, to give a quality education to all of our children, regardless of their race or socioeconomic background. Again, I said that my platform is a champion for quality education. One quote that I like to leave with you, the former president of the National Urban League, Hugh B. Price, said in his 2002 publication entitled Achievement Matters. He said, education is the great equalizer in American society. He not only said that, he said it unlocks the doors to children's futures. It's the key to accessing opportunity and getting ahead in this country. So we have to make sure that our students have a quality education. Again, I'm accessible. I want individuals to challenge me. I want individuals to contact me. And again, I take pride in saying everyone that has contacted me, I've contacted them immediately and gotten them to persons to answer those questions. So thank you for having us, and vote for me on May 6th.
Mr. Griffin.
I also want to thank AKA for opening up the time for us to express our views. I believe in Grand Rapids Public Schools, and I believe that for 28 years I provided a quality education for the students that I served. And I think the parents felt that same way about me. We've got 1,700 teachers, I believe, in the school system who are trying to do the same thing. Most of them spend a lot of time, a lot of money out of their own pocket to give the kids what they think that they deserve and what they need. I want to be a part of encouraging those teachers to continue the excellent job that they're doing. I want us to learn to respect them as the professionals that they are, and stop trying to put new ideas and new things on them without their involvement. That's the thing that bothers me the most about what we do in the administrative and hierarchical process. We need to respect them and listen to them. They have an awful lot of ideas. They have a lot of answers to some of the problems that we've talked about tonight. I am a hard worker. I have strong convictions. I'm a learner. I'm a listener. I've been a bridge builder all of my life. I don't believe that there isn't a solution to every difficult problem. There is a solution. We have to learn to listen to each other, respect each other's point of views, respect each other's cultures and ideals. We need all entities in Grand Rapids to work together so that GRPS becomes a viable alternative for every parent in the Grand Rapids district.
I would also like to thank AKA and all of you this evening for coming out and spending your valuable time with all of us to hear what we have to say. I think when you think about me, I want you to think about passion, commitment, and skills. I have proven my passion, I've proven my commitment, and I have proven my skills in many ways. And I have skin in this game, and the results and what I do on the board matters to me personally at home and to my friends and my family and my neighbors and all of you. And I think what we really need to remember is whether your children are in Grand Rapids Public Schools or not, the destination of Grand Rapids Public Schools impacts not only this city, but this entire region. And I promise to all of you that I will listen, that I will build bridges, and that I will collaborate with all people. Vote for Jane Gietzen, May 6th.
This one there.
Thank you again, AKA, for the invitation, and thank you for coming out this evening. My theme is supporting our future leaders. I support the students of Grand Rapids Public Schools, and I think all members of this community should do likewise. I think that the students are also supported by the teachers who teach them, the administrators who lead them, and the administration who is leading all groups represented by the district. And I think it's our role as board members to make sure that those members have an opportunity to be heard. If there are issues that any represented group is facing with this administration, I would encourage you to make sure that you're at those board meetings to voice those concerns. I think the teachers have done a really good job at having Mr. Helder come to those meetings to address their concerns, and I, along with Reverend Hoskins and other members of the board, has met with the leadership of GRIA, and we have talked about some of those issues that they feel are a concern. And so those were things that I went back personally and had conversations with Dr. Taylor about, because when the employees of the district have concerns, it's our role and it's our job to make sure that we're addressing those with the administration. And I will continue to do so because I think that's my role in supporting our future leaders. If you would like more information about me or my campaign, please visit my website at alexsanita.com, or you may email me at lanierS@alexsanita.com. Thank you for coming, and vote for Sanita Lanier on May 6th. Thank you.
Mr. Baker.
Thanks again, Alpha Kappa Alpha, for this opportunity. It's a great example of community engagement with the schools. I also want to give a plug out for another community institution that I happened upon last week, UICA, which did a fantastic art show for all of the elementary schools in the city. I took my kids there on Friday, and it was a blast. Everywhere from Jacob Lawrence to Andy Warhol were somehow represented there. Anyway, it was a fantastic experience, and another great example of a community institution. My kids were there. They saw their classmates' pictures on the wall, and we can grow up to be artists. We have the opportunity to aspire, and that's absolutely what children in Grand Rapids Public Schools must have the opportunity to aspire. If a 15-year-old tells me that they can't attend college because it's just not something option, then that's a problem. I want that whether they go to college or not, whatever they want to do with their life, I want them to have the opportunity to aspire. What I think school boards need are people with expertise and people that represent the various communities and families that are in the city. Expertise, I offer expertise in the area of policy analysis and being able to articulate analysis because of my training and my experience and being a teacher at Ferris State University. I will have to work hard to represent various viewpoints in the city. I think, again, I can be a representative of teachers and of my community. I think that I also have skills and learning the things that other communities in the city need to offer. And I think that it's important that the school board represent the various interests in the community. And again, I really thank you. So vote for Tony Baker on May 6th. That's all I got.
They can't vote for you.
Well, let's give all of our candidates a round of applause.
They'll have a moral dilemma.
I want to echo my thanks to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority for hosting this important forum. I want to thank these ladies and gentlemen for having that commitment and caring enough about our children to want to serve in this capacity. And I want to thank you, the audience, for caring enough about our children to make sure that we have someone who represents your interest on the school board. And everyone vote on May 6th. And now I'd like to turn the program over to our chairwoman, Sarah Hill.
Again, good evening, everybody. A few things that I'd like to offer to you. The first thing that I do want to clarify is that there are 3 positions available on the school board. So I needed to let everyone know that. Our candidates, Tony Baker and Sunita Lanier, are the candidates for the 1-year position. There is only 1 spot available for that position. The rest of our candidates sitting up here before you today are candidates for our 4-year position, and there are 2 slots available. So please keep that in mind when you go to vote on May 6th. For anyone who is not registered to vote, we have a table out in the lobby, not the table with the cake, the other table, and we do have voter registration available, and we will turn that in for you. So please, if you are over 18 and you are a citizen of the United States, get registered to vote. Everyone on TV, get registered to vote. You need to vote. Be registered by April 30th to vote on May 6th. So please take care of that. Do not procrastinate. It is very important. Again, I did mention cake. We are going to have a mini reception with cake and punch in the lobby that we would love for you to take because we paid for it for you all. Okay? So please take advantage of that, as well as having the opportunity to mingle with some of the candidates. Again, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated turned 100 years old this year, and Theta Chi Omega has made a commitment to return to service to all mankind. And this is just one way that we're doing that. With that being said, we have given you all evaluations. It is personally very important to me that you all fill out those evaluations and return them to us so that we can continue to bring you quality programs of interest and to benefit the community. We're not doing this for us, we're doing it for you, and that's what Alpha Kappa Alpha is about. So I would like to thank Grand Valley State University for allowing us to be here in their facilities. They're nice facilities today, and they let us know that we were here. I would like to thank Ingrid Scott Weekly, who so graciously accepted our offer to moderate. And she is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I did leave that out of her introduction. But she was helping us out as a sister, and we are all about unity. I would like to thank all of the attendees and community members for coming out and supporting this event. It's very important to us. All the candidates, again, for your time. I would like to thank all of our elected officials that were here, and Mayor, thank you for coming to speak as well and to welcome our community members. That makes a difference when you have elected officials who are present in the community and they don't just sit in their offices and write letters.
Write letters.
I'd also like to say thank you to Class Quant and GRCC for taping this event so that people will have the opportunity to see it. It will be aired on Channel 27, so if you know someone who wanted to make it and they couldn't, please let them know to look for it. If you know someone who decided not to come, let them watch it too. It's very important that we get this information out. And then finally, I would like to say thank you to all of my sorority sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, no matter what chapter you are from. But a special thank you to Soror Kelly Christopher, Ruth Lumpkins, and Janice Johnson for helping put this program together. And last but not least, we'd like to say thank you to Soror Cassania Pugh and our Ivy-lets, who are our high school girls from our auxiliary organization, who are your greeters tonight. We thought it very important to have some of our high school girls out here to see how this process is put together, but also some of them are graduating, some of them are not. So this very much affects them as it would any of their peers. So with that said, I'd like to thank you all. Have a good night. And please don't forget your evaluations. Sign up to vote and go get some cake. Thank you.